Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Friday. You've made it to the end of the weekend, and you are viewing A Flawed Man. That's me, Stuart Davis, a relative nobody. I am a average Christian. I'm not a pastor. I'm or a biblical scholar. I am your average Christian, deacon at a small church that's outside of Richmond, Virginia, offering exposure in a look inside the mind of what I call again average Christian, so that you don't feel like that if you're thinking about starting a relationship with God, think that and big encouragement there is that you a little awkward looking today. This collar straight. Should have checked that out before I even started. Looks like it just looks awkward down here. Maybe it's because I'm leaning over. I'm showing everybody, cleavage. Anyway, um, but if you're looking at starting a relationship with Christ, starting to go to church, there may be a worry that church is a somber, boring experience, full of judgmental people, and that you're going to feel immediately guilty that you're even there. And if you're going to the right place, it couldn't be farther from the truth. Folks who are really in the spirit of Christ will be welcoming and trying to get you in and involved and plugged in. So you may not know that. So if you are browsing the internet, like sometimes I do at night, and having a time where you're worried about um, direction of your life or the future of things for you after death, and you're looking into Christianity. Hopefully you find this channel and find it compelling enough to start that relationship. For everybody else, welcome again to another episode. And tonight it's going to be pretty chill. I don't really have anything scheduled. um, and I didn't want to just go right into reading of the Bible, which is what we've been doing. What I wanted to talk about tonight was fasting, actually, something that I'm terrible at doing, and something I've actually never done for, uh, and something I've never done, and I don't really have any experience with. So, um, I got a friend of mine. I've reached out to him. He is a very wardrobe malfunctions. Very devoted Catholic, very good guy. And while we have some differences in some of our approaches to Christianity, he is an awesome dude to talk to. He is awesome at giving his thoughts and opinions, and they're very insightful and very well reasoned out. And that's what you want when you're discussing when you're discussing Christ. You want to make sure it's founded in Scripture, and that it's constructive, and that it's uplifting. You don't want to be tearing down other Christians if you can help it, because that's not correct. Now, if somebody else is doing something obnoxious, you might want to call them to account for that, and whatever. But again, going to going just to discuss fasting and why I'm terrible at it. Because number one, so I fast. So let's get back up a little bit, and the reason why I chose that for tonight. So I was fasting um, from Wednesday night to this afternoon for medical reasons. And if any of y'all are a male over 45 years old, you might understand exactly why. And so I was doing it for medical reasons, and now I don't have to do it anymore. But I was miserable the entire time. And if you wonder how miserable I am, just ask my wife. She will tell you about how whiny I was during the entire experience. I don't like being hungry. I don't like going without food. And the first thing I realized, obviously there is a religious approach to fasting. Some people do it often, and I I get that there is an angle to that, but it's one that I am terrible at. Like, I will be the first. first to tell you that there are big shortcomings I have in my practice of my faith, and that's part of why I named this channel the way it is, and that's part of why I wanted to get that out there because I think that for a lot of people out there, they think that in order to be a Christian, you have to live this perfect life or next to perfect, and if you don't, if you fall short on certain things, then the whole house of cards about it and beating yourself up. And nobody really wants to experience repeatedly beating yourself up over things. So why get involved in that in the first place? So, in a roundabout way to talk, I mean, fasting is a good example of something that I don't. I've literally never fasted for religious purposes. At least not fasted from food for religious purposes. And it is something that I don't know. I don't know how to prep myself for now after going a day and a half without eating. There is a moment in the Bible. There's a moment in the New Testament where Jesus goes out into the desert for 40 days, and he is goes without food that entire 40 days. And at that point, the devil approaches him and tempts him in some way. And I'm not going to go into the details behind it, but he's tempting him. And Jesus, instead of doing what I would do, which is rage out because I was ready to snap at everybody at about hour 12 with no food. But what he did was basically just say, go away. I didn't answer your question. I didn't answer your temptation the way you wanted me to. So you can just leave and leave me to my hunger and starvation. Where if I had the powers of Christ at that time, and I was at least being disciplined enough not to break my fasting, I probably would have broken Lucifer's back at that point, figuratively and literally. So, um, there's so that one experience from Jesus is enough to illustrate how holy and how one with God doing such a thing can be. It's just something I don't have any experience with. And I talked about this the other day when I said um, I do tithe, but I don't tithe enough to for biblical standards. It's just something that I don't do very well. But does that make me a bad Christian? I'm sure in some people's eyes that might be the case. It is something I try to work on and try to do better at the things that I don't do. But at the same time, people aren't asking me to leave the church. They're not, I don't feel like anybody's whispering behind my back. At least not about that. They might be, they might whisper about some of my comments on Facebook. If anybody catches me using foul language outside of church, they might be commenting about that. But I don't feel like somebody's out to get me within the church of um, because of these reasons. And the other reasons I was giving were tongue in cheek. If the purpose of church in that regard in the community is to kind of hold each other accountable, not to nitpick at each other all the time. We're all supposed to build each other up, not break each other down. That's not what the point of community is. That's not what the point of a congregation is. That's not what the point of church, us and fellow Christians are to be. We are not destroyers. We are builders. We're builders of faith, builders of foundation of spiritual life. That's what we're there to do for each other. But sometimes that might be like, if you notice something's off on somebody else, and maybe they're struggling with it, lend a hand, give them some advice. Try to approach these things with a modicum of respect. Now, if something egregious is going on, that can be troublesome, and that's something that I want to get into later. Um, I really want to get a panel together of folks that I know with insights on this, who can who can give their insights on what it's like to be hurt by the church, hurt either by the people who run it, the authorities of whatever authority or administration and denomination you belong to, whatever that is, or you've been hurt by the congregation, or you've been hurt by scandal, worldwide, and what we've had to do to get past that and continue on with our faith, because it can happen, and that's one of the things. There's two facets that offer themselves up to issues with pushing people away from Christ. And the one big one is outside factors. We have media, we have institutions where faith, true to its parent principles, true to the principles of God, true to the Bible, will laugh at us, will denigrate us, will say that our views are backwards or oppressive and things like that. It makes it look uncool or stupid to be a person of faith. And that's a big driving factor. And we're going to talk about that from time to time on this show. However, the self-inflicted problem comes from within, is how we treat our fellow Christians and how we don't it's a balance of holding ourselves accountable and giving grace to those folks that we are trying to hold accountable. And some of that requires honesty with the individual who is having a problem, or might not be having a problem, depending who it is. But honesty and integrity, some humility on behalf of the individual, but also grace, understanding, but firm principles, attitude from the church congregation. And I do think that's a good point where some sort of hierarchy is established, and that's established in the New Testament when the Christian church is coming together. So after Christ has left, has ascended into heaven, and the disciples and now apostles are tasked to create this faith with the new covenant, this post Judaic faith, understanding that the Messiah has come and fulfilled the prophecy. Together, this is when elders and deacons are established. Now, the title might change between Catholics, Protestants, or Orthodoxy. That might change from time to time, but the premise remains the same. You need elders to kind of guide the church outside of the pastor. The pastor is there to kind of lead the flock. He's there to give the sermon. He's there to do those things, and the elders are there to kind of take the weight of the leadership from the pastor for all the other stuff, the other administrative thing. What's the direction of the church? Kind of these things. And the people are supposed to, lift these identify these elders and put them in these places. And from there, they get deacons. And yeah, I've talked to different. I've heard many different schools of thought on deacons, but basically, other people helping out, other people to reach out to folks in various different ways. So I think that's good, where we can have these folks who are, kind of focused on this, and should be identified as folks who can approach somebody who's having difficulty, and approach it in a way that is godly, accountable, and with grace. We're trying to identify a problem and offer help and assistance, guidance of something. Get my cat out of here. Offer guidance in some way to help them move past that. And if they refuse, other steps other steps need to be taken, but that's a story for another time. That's a whole different discussion. So, um, let me see if I can reply to this text because, like I said, my buddy, I was trying to get him involved in this. I know there was some interest there. So let me do something. Invite, copy that, search messenger. Sorry for the dead air. He's going to be able, if he's able to get on, it's going to be something where he's going to be able to speak from his standpoint about what he believes in fasting, and not just fasting from a dietary sense, but also fasting in other ways. Gamma. Copy. And we'll see if he pops on. If he does, we'll have a if he does, we'll have a discussion with him. Anyway, so um, the problem is many things. Church congregational members taking upon themselves to be judgmental. Church congregation members, or the congregation as a whole, possibly having a person put in a leadership position, be it pastor, elder, deacon, who is not well equipped to have these discussions. I know that it would be difficult for me to have a discussion with some folks, but others not. It comes down to that relationship. Do you know how to approach these people? Some people are are a people oriented, where I can be abrasive to some. I can be confrontational to some, but to other people, they appreciate what I'm getting across, and they find that I can level with them on an issue. Some people match, some people don't. But if you put somebody in there who's brash and goes straight at it and gets these issues, then that's you where you can push people away. And hey, let's see. I haven't gotten you in there yet, Raph. Hang on a second. All right, you see yourself?
I can.
Awesome. All right, let me introduce Raphael. He has been a good friend of mine for a little while. He has been a very highly encouraging person to for me doing this stream, and I do appreciate these things. So welcome, Raph. Brief to add on a little bit. He is Roman Catholic, I guess, is the correct description. Roman Catholic in his denomination, and while we enjoy picking at each other for our different perspectives, like I said, he is a wealth of information on biblical knowledge, and much like my friend Eric has done a lot of research into what he believes, and is an excellent person for an apologetic standpoint. So, welcome, Raph.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be on, and it's good to be talking with you, especially on this format where, we're focusing on the ultimate goal of heaven. We want everybody to get to heaven. And I understand you want to talk about fasting and Lent,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
self-flagellation essentially, and something that Catholics are typically known for
Yeah.
to a certain degree.
None of the Opus Dei stuff
Yeah,
in this
no, no,
case.
no, not necessarily any of that, but the just the making sure that um, I guess the best way to describe fasting for me is I've been a lifelong athlete, and I remember reading or hearing in church about St. Paul. He writes in one of his epistles that being a Christian is, or living a good life is like being an athlete. You have to have a right plan. You have to have the right training. You have to have the right goal. You have to have stamina. And, you know, being part of an athlete is having a correct diet and knowing when to, when and how to deny yourself something that is not going to be conducive to you finishing and finding that goal. So fasting, very, a lot of Christianity is symbolism. You have symbols for pretty much everything. Like in Catholicism, you have the sign of the cross, and that has all kinds of symbological
Rainbows,
gr-
doves, the
gratitude.
fish. Yeah.
Right. But fasting is something that is like extremely real, something super physical because you feel it all day long. And it's a way for you to conquer the world being, uh, everything that is trying to keep you from the spiritual realm that our goal is.
So there's times like Lent where you're giving stuff up, and there's times where maybe the church will organize some sort of fasting. But on a personal level, like when do you decide, from your perspective, when you should, if you've reached a point where you need to fast about something, or is this like a disciplined routine that you're in?
Me personally, I I typically fast several times a week. Just like I said, because I'm an athlete, and I also combine that with a spiritual. Say I'm giving this up, so hopefully my little suffering will add to whatever good someone else needs in the world. Like just transfer suffering into goodness. I'm giving something up so someone else can gain it, and or as reparation for my sin. I know I've come short many times, so I understand I need punishment. I might as well choose, not eating sugar for a day or something like that, or skipping breakfast, and just trying to make it to lunch without giving into anything more than coffee or something like that. It can be something simple like that. It doesn't have to be extreme. Um, but another so you can kind of bake that into your everyday life. And Lent, it is more organized. Uh, it begins on Ash Wednesday, um, and then lasts until the Saturday before Easter. And on every day except Sunday, you're supposed to have no more than one full meal a day, and then two meals that would equal one meal themselves. So it's like you can have like a small snack for breakfast, a small snack for lunch, and then a normal sized meal, but it's not supposed to be anything extravagant. Uh, that's the traditional understanding of fasting. And you can go more extreme than that, like just doing bread and water or something like that.
Is that derived from like Passover? Because we know, I mean, because Easter happens over the Passover, and there's
Yes,
fasting in Passover.
it's a combination of Passover and also what we were talking about earlier today in one of our chats. The 40 days like length of Lent comes directly from the 40 days that Christ went into the desert and fasted and was tempted by Satan and defeated him. That's according to Milton. Like he had Paradise Lost,
Hmm.
and instead of writing Paradise Regained as the story of Christ's passion, it's that period in the desert where the devil tempts him. That's where he kind of saw the tide shift. It's where he was. that's where the devil was really defeated, when Christ like personally spoke to him and said, "No, you're not going to
I
defeat
think I
me
might.
on any three of these." What was that?
I think I lost you for just a second.
Oh
You were
no.
saying when Satan was really defeated.
Yeah, and because it was that was when Christ's mind was like totally fully made up, according to the poet John Milton. This is all, not Christian dogma or anything like that, but it's like a poetic retelling of the story, and I think that's kind of important. And he did like an important part of that, like the first temptation was to break his fast. Turn the stones into bread, break your fast.
Yeah.
And so that's what Lent is supposed to represent, is that difficult period that we're all supposed to take on, because Christ was human. That he had a dual nature. So if he can do it, so can we.
Right.
We have to live up to that too. But another book in the Bible that is interesting, and I try to think about it a lot, is the book of Esther. I still don't quite understand all of it. And it's an interesting book, because I think that's like the only book in the Bible where God is not explicitly mentioned. Like you can go back and check me on that, but I don't think he's actually mentioned in the entire book.
I know that might be Esther. I'm trying to remember myself, because I think that there's
but it's like a
thinking
pure it's a
there's
pure
one book in there where God's just like not mentioned, and that's part of the
uh-huh.
controversy behind it is
Because that I think that's like another like philosophical twist of the story, because
it is
they're
Esther. It is
they're
Esther. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, it's
because they're in exile.
right.
They're in the Babylonian exile. They're away from their land, and they're also separated from God, because I think at this point the Ark of the Covenant had been lost.
Yeah,
So it's like they're just like in total abjection from their traditions. But uh, and so with that comes loss of their culture. Like Esther is not a Hebrew name. Esther comes from I think Ishtar or Isis, or one of the pagan gods.
oh really?
Yeah. So like they had become moderately paganized, because they were living in this pagan culture.
It's not surprising. I mean, because they were doing stuff even when Israel was a nation that we haven't gotten into the reading part yet. But I mean, you and I and many people know that Israel as a nation was based from God setting it up, and Moses and Joshua and all that, and we had some kings that were the kings were all Jewish, or the kings were all Hebrew, but they weren't
Mhm.
all acting as godly men. And
Right.
even the good ones, even some of the good ones, failed to stop all the worship of Baal and the other
So
folks.
so you have Mordecai getting into all this trouble, and he says, Esther, you got to bail us out, because all the Hebrews are about to get executed. And so what does she do? She says, I'm going to fast for 3 days, and then I'm going to go talk to the emperor.
Whew. That's
So
that sounds like a suspicious, not suspicious, but a questionable call. It's a bold strategy. Um,
yeah,
ladies,
yeah.
when ladies get hangry, they're testy, and then you're getting
Well,
ready to
I think
go up to a king who literally got rid of his ex-wife because she got testy with him.
right. Um, but I think what she said, well, that might be the reason why she talked to him at a banquet that she made for him. She was like, but so it has like Old Testament significance too, and like you can just go through like the entire Bible, if uh, just like Control F key for fasting or fast or something, or even better, prayer and fasting. Those two linked together. Um, I know in the New Testament you're going to have a lot of hits for a
Oh yeah,
Control F search of prayer and fasting. They're coupled together so frequently that the church fathers basically settled on that fasting is a key component to the Christian life. So, I mean, it's baked into my heritage and my culture as a Catholic, and I think that Protestants would benefit from it as well. Of
A lot of
course,
them do. A lot
yeah, like
fasting is
I
not.
don't doubt it. I don't
Yeah,
doubt it.
it's like I said, I was saying earlier, I feel that's one of the unique things that I feel like is a failing of my own is that I've never fasted religiously. I did this recent fast, but I did tell after 12 hours, I did text my wife when she was on the way home from work. I said, I don't think I'm going to make it. Kiss the kids and tell them I'm going to go meet Jesus. She put that in the comments. She wanted to make sure I commented on it, but um, I
uh,
have friends in my sphere and people that I know of outside of that who do fast, will fast, and but yeah, the the Catholics really have a corner on the marketing side of fasting. Like it's
yeah, marketing.
you know what you're getting when you're there. There's going to be some fasting involved. Does it? I get, and it is, and you're right. In the Old Testament, there is several times where prayer and fasting are together. We see I think
Mhm.
we see Daniel do the same thing, and many other parts of it. And obviously, it's big part of the Passover tradition and rites. But does it when you're fasting? I guess what is the is there an added connection to God? 'Cause I've been told that there is, but what from your perspective can kind of gives you more connection, or what are you feeling when you're fasting?
For me, it's that goal line. Like I if I imagine that I'm running a race or trying to break my personal best at a lift or something like that, and uh, trying to compete, like as insane as it sounds, like I've got to compete with the saints and with Christ, like all the apostles and stuff. And like, these guys, they did it for this long. I've got this. I've got everything they had. What what will separate me from them? It's my mind and my will and my spirit, and that's the thing that breaks. It's not my body that breaks, even though my body is telling me it's going to break. It's not. That's not it. So it becomes a battle of do I want to give into comfort and uh, and the world? Like that's how it's always uh, talked about in the New Testament, is like comfort in the world are your enemies. Um, Probably not in those exact words,
I think we've seen
but
that culturally here in America, maybe in Western culture in general. Our comfort has made us not as not as righteous and not as devoted as you see in folks in for nations that are struggling, where
mhm.
Christianity is not a popular thing and not a welcome practice um, with the government or the general populace. Like you can pick off emerging nations and third world nations out there where some of those folks are fighting the literally good fight
Mhm.
against people who don't want to see them practicing that. So I think the comfort and that's a very compelling thing for me hearing that, because it helps me rationalize kind of I'm taking worldliness away from myself,
Mhm.
something that I'm attached to. I'm very attached to food. I don't like not being. I don't like being hungry. I like
I
being
was
overly.
I,
like
I was going to ask you, what was the first thing you ate after your fast
so.
ended? What do you do to break your fast?
Well, for this one, it was for some reason it was just Buffalo Wild Wings. I was just like, just get some chicken nuggets because they're boneless. They're not real wings, but you get the boneless just so it's easy to eat. I told my wife, because she was my driver. Um, I said right before I went in, I was like, Caribbean jerk, boneless, and fries and cheese curds, blue cheese, just dressing. Just put the order in. We can pick it up on the way home. And she said,
Patrician choice of your sauce.
Yeah, the Caribbean jerk and Asian zing. Those are my two go tos, just depending on my mood. But my standby has always been the jerk.
Hmm.
Um, And so she said when I was leaving, she said, "You're probably going to be on diet restriction. Do you want me to get something milder?" And I go, "I'll tell you later." But I would just come from like giving her my cell phone and everything. So when I the anesthesia from the procedure, I heard them talking. I was like, "If you call my wife, you have to tell her to get ready to pick me up." And they said no. I was like, uh, tell her to order the Caribbean jerk chicken." They didn't tell her, so she wanted to go sit down in the restaurant anyway. But I was like, "Oh, they're always slow. They're so slow. I'm never gonna eat." I'm so food came the food came really quickly, so maybe it's something that they're improving on. But that was I've still got some leftovers. I ordered way more than I needed that I was gonna eat, but I did that by design. I usually don't.
It's good to have something waiting for you just as a little snack later on.
Oh yeah, because they tell you, well, nothing fried, nothing greasy. But the doc was basic said everybody brings that. Everybody brings that. So he goes, whatever. He goes, if you get it's mostly because like you're probably gonna be gassy. You've been fasting and now you're dumping all this food into your system. Um, try to take it light. It's like, yeah, not today, not after this.
This is a different kind of sacrifice that I'm going to make.
Right. And you know, if I can and I think that if I can taper it a little bit from, from not from eating nothing to, maybe something very small, something very bland, something very like not necessarily something that I enjoy so much of, um, that could probably help me personally do it. And part of and like I said, a lot of this and this whole the purpose of this channel is to discuss different Christian topics, but specifically as for outreach to people who are looking to join the faith to start that relationship to God. This can be something that you can do on your own if you can hold yourself accountable. If you're not ready to make that leap into going to a church, if you've been hurt by a church before or for some reason, it helps better when you've got that church there to kind of feed you that spiritual you know that spiritual knowledge and guidance. But if you're looking for something that you can do, reading your Bible, starting learning, kind of just starting that prayer habit where you're talking to God, not necessarily reciting anything, but just having that conversation with God, like maybe at night. I know at night that's a lot of times where my thoughts are going, but taking that time to pray and maybe fasting and taking some worldly things out of your life is wholesome. It sounds like that, and I think you give
and
a really good example there.
and it's not, and this isn't something that's unique to Christians either. This
No,
is prayer and fasting, um, meditation and fasting, and like name it whatever you want. Those when you have like a really serious religion, you're going to see people adhering to those two things. And fasting can be uh, like I said, just giving a little thing up. It doesn't necessarily have to be bread and water for an entire week or something like that. You could just say, oh well, I normally I remember my mom, she was like, I'm going to start with something small, and I'm going to give up creamer with my coffee. And then she ended up taking more and more things away, and like her Lent progressively got more severe. But it started with her saying, I'm just going to give up no creamer in my coffee, and then it became no sugar in my coffee, and then became no coffee by the end of it. So it was this you don't want to, like, going back to the athlete analogy, you don't want to start deadlifting everything at like 300 pounds. You want
right.
to work up to that, uh, but you're not going to start off doing that. Start small, and like just like the mustard seed, it will grow into something big as long as you keep
Very good
feeding
analogy.
it. As long as you keep feeding it. Um, there was something else I was going to say, but I forgot.
Well, it makes I mean, to what you're saying, it helps with that self discipline that you're trying to build, because
Mhm.
a lot of part of faith in living and walking a life that's closer to Christ, with this, is closer to God, involves discipline and improving things that you need work on. Do I need to work on my temper? Do I need to work on forgiveness? Do I need to work on self control? Do I need to work on addictions and everything? And if this is especially if somebody is struggling with addiction, faith is an awesome outlet. I think
Hmm.
I think the AA has a lot of Christian resources and themes in it, and
Hmm.
and other you know substance abuse outreaches have those Christian outreaches with them, built into them.
Hmm.
But that's a great thing if you are, maybe you're still smoking. Not a whole lot of people still do, but if you're smoking, you you've wanted to quit for a while, maybe, and you're also, like I said, struggling with faith and want to build that, it might be a great example to look. I'm gonna give up. I'm gonna cut back on my smoking.
Yeah, just give
Um,
up one cigarette a day at first, and
yeah,
then you'll discover that you don't have a taste for it anymore.
right.
After a certain amount of time, as long as you're honest with yourself and you're honest with whatever whoever you promise it to. It could be God. It could be whatever higher power you desire. Hopefully, it's the Christian God. Like
Hopefully, hopefully it's the right one.
yeah, yeah. But but that's the thing about the AA and NA is like you have to believe in a higher power. Hopefully, like I have a feeling that certain higher power works a little bit better than the rest of them.
Yeah,
But
that's the key, right? We would be, what was it? Is who was it Elijah who's sitting there being, oh, maybe your
yeah,
maybe your God is
the 40
maybe
priests
your
or
God's sleeping. Maybe he's very tired right now.
yeah, the priests of Baal.
He has to go to the
No, it wasn't
mechanic.
40. It was 400 of them that
Yeah.
he ended up just going ham on. As I love that
That's
story so
Oh
much.
man, one of the best times. It was the best of times in the Old Testament when that went down. Um, Now here's a question. So when you have like moments when you're doing a fast, whether it's something prolonged or something difficult, when you have those moments where you kind of want to give in, maybe especially since you do it for a while, you've been doing it for a while, but whenever you've got moments where you want to give in, is that a moment where you say, okay, I'm struggling right now, maybe I should just step back a second, pray, and use that time for prayer to kind of collect myself so that
Yeah,
I can
certainly.
get past that hump.
There's the there's a saint named Saint Benedict, and he was a monk in the early Middle Ages or in the Dark Ages, something like
Not
that.
a German pope or Polish pope in
No, 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 no.
the 1990s,
No,
2000s.
uh, he he's the reason that Pope Benedict XVI chose that name. Uh, but he basically reformed the way that Catholics thought about being a monk, and he wrote this basically how to called the Benedictine Rule, and the it can be summed up in basically one sentence. The Latin is ora et labora, which means work and pray. So, there's the old maxim, what was it? Idleness is the devil's playground.
Yeah,
You gotta stay busy. So if you feel like you're about to give into something, work and pray. Get to working on something, and
yeah,
then turn your mind to a higher than your stomach,
yeah.
or
In my
whatever you're
case,
dealing. Like it's uh, like I remember. So today I fasted just because that's something that I try to do on
yeah. You said you
Fridays.
do it weekly, so
Yeah, at least a couple times a week. But normally Fridays are a good day for it because I like to think about because that's the day that Christ sacrificed himself on. And so uh, this morning I got up pretty early, and so by lunchtime I was pretty starving, and I was like, I could go to lunch, or I could take a walk to church. And there's a church a few blocks from where I work that has lunch hour masses. And I was like, I could go to mass right now. So I went to mass and then came back to the office, and um, I got some like peanut butter crackers, and that was like a very light lunch. Kept my fast going until I took my wife to a Mexican restaurant after we both got off. And that was my day. It took, it takes a lot of focus some days, but I just had to get over that one little hump. And as soon as I started walking, like the hunger went away. I was like, oh, I have a goal now. I'm going to church. I could have just gone for a walk and like come back and then gotten back to work at the office, and probably made it through the rest of the day. But having that even higher goal of going to church to actually, worship was even better. So, yeah, just work and pray, work and
Yeah,
pray.
and I think and I think you bring up an important part too. Is you're not always going to be very successful in meeting your goals in whatever you're doing
Hmm.
in fasting. Because look, living a Christian life is about so much of that is giving yourself grace, but at the same time holding yourself accountable.
Hmm.
It's that balance in all things in life. Um, as it what is it, Ezekiel? I- where he's talking a time for everything. There's a time for
Right.
everything.
Well, and
Um,
even like the Stoics and Aristotle, like you can overlay pretty much everything that they said on to Christianity. And the the premise of virtue ethics and stoicism is doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. So if your fasting is causing you bodily harm, or you're not going to be able to be as accurate as you need to be at work or something like that, it's probably a good idea to rethink the extent that you're fasting.
right.
Um, so, like,
I'm gonna go without water for a week.
yeah,
That's
that's
not
not a good idea.
that's fine. That's not a realistic goal, guy. You need to drink. You need to drink more water. Maybe make your goal to as a fast to not be thirsty. Oh, just drink as much water as
Yeah,
possible.
and drinking water and black coffee is not breaking your fast.
Right.
So that's one little joy that I have, is like just pounding coffee all day long.
Yeah, that was me because before the night before because they said, "Oh, you can have broth," and I'm like, tried heating up some beef broth. It was awful, and I was like, and then I told my wife, I told my wife, told her, I said, "Can you just like make some ramen and just strain all the good stuff out, but put the seasoning in the broth?" And I had that, and I was like, that was okay, and it held over for a while. But I mean, this is something. Listening to you talk, putting this in, you're getting my mind right at least on this, and in a way that I just haven't really put it together before.
Probably just confirming some things.
Yeah, well,
You know.
and help me talk through it, and
Mhm.
if that's nothing else, that you get out of this is the idea that this is what church, the community of Christians is supposed to be all about. Because again, um, Raph is a Roman Catholic, and I am a non-denominational Protestant, and we're not on polar opposites. I mean, because you can go way into the stratosphere at some denominations, but we are, I think, within many realms, very far apart, in many denominationally. But again, this is us talking something out that he is well versed in, well experienced in, and I'm not, and looking for an answer. And this is him helping me, kind of work things out, help, him giving me his insights, and me kind of putting the pieces together and to sort of say, okay, I can do this, and I need to look at it this with this perspective, because I know that that's going to work for me, and I need to take this approach so that I don't overdo it, screw up, and then say, I mean, I just can't do this, right? Um, let's think that, and that's important. That's what the community. That's a big part of what the community is about. Is lifting
Absolutely.
each other up, kind of help. Again, holding each other accountable to some end. We're not there to be antagonistic about things.
No, absolutely not. We're all siblings. Once we've accepted Christ and been baptized, and that's it. You're my brother, so let's try our best to get each other to heaven.
Yeah,
That's why we're here.
we want as many admission tickets out there as possible, and
Absolutely.
that was what I want to get a debate going, eventually about because the once saved always saved debate, which was raging wildly on the Christian apologetics page that we're on, uh, this morning and last night. Um, there's some takes on that, and I don't subscribe to the once saved always saved idea because I think there's definitely some ways you can opt out of that,
And
and
clearly,
other
I don't believe that either,
right,
because the importance of confession is like one of the foundational. Um, Confession and penance is like one of the sacraments, one of the foundational aspects of performing the Catholic religion.
right.
So and from a pragmatic standpoint, if I don't know how deep you want to get into it right now,
I mean, I got
but
time. I've got time. It's Friday night. The kids are in bed, and the wife's asleep. Probably, we're on our way there. So I've got until
you know what?
when
Save this one for another time because my wife is not asleep.
well, and I think we've talked through that as well. So I mean, I guess we can, and we're close. We're getting close to an hour into this anyway. So um, I guess we can close this out with you know, that's what fasting's about, all right? What Raph has said, it's about getting closer to God. It's about practicing things that not have only been part of the Christian and Hebrew history, but also the history of Christ. Things that even Christ has done, and some of the all stars of the Bible have done themselves. Prayer and fasting. There's a good approach to it. You've heard some really good tips, I think, from Raph, who does this religiously, and and there you have it. And it's not something that into a church if you're not comfortable, if you're not at that level yet, but you are starting to walk walk that path. This is something you can start to do on your own and build a better, healthier, and from a physical and spiritual aspect life. And that's what God wants. Our bodies are our temples, and a healthier spirit is a spirit that's um, much more prepared to accept Christ. So, um, you got anything to add on that, Raph?
um, just that let uh, the most important prayer in Christianity, the Our Father, mentions, "Give us this day our daily bread." Um, that's something that is good to meditate on as well. You want to have a good appreciation for food, uh, because all of it is a gift from God. You don't want to be gluttonous and not appreciate the food that you get. That is another aspect of fasting that I think reorients your mind to appreciating creation, because everything in creation is a gift from God. So that's just one last thing that I wanted to add. And everybody who is thinking about becoming Christian, I highly recommend just taking apart each stanza of each statement of the Our Father, and just thinking about it a little bit at a time, and I think you'll realize how reasonable it is. Just to pray over that, just say it slowly. Think about each little sentence, and I think that's probably the greatest help I have.
That's good. That's a very good kind of primer to things.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because it's very popular, very well known. I mean, we even say that before our softball games, like the teams get together and we recite the Lord's Prayer.
That's awesome.
It's the Lord's Prayer, right? So it's a great place to start at when you're
It's
thinking of.
it's, it's the one that he told us to pray. So
Yeah,
let's do it.
exactly. I mean, I remember learning it as a kid. All right, well, with that said, everybody, I hope you have a great weekend, and we're gonna pick up Monday. We're gonna be talking about the Israelites and the 12 tribes, and if those last words from Jacob had a lasting impact on the tribes as a whole and not just his sons. So be safe, everybody. God bless, and good night.
God bless. Thank you for having me on, Stu.
Anytime, man. Anytime.